Hello, this is Deb, and I am going to be showing you today how to do the Bluebird Artfully Quilted Designs applique kit. The applique kit will include the directions and all of the fabrics that you need for the applique itself. You will have to provide a background fabric to put it on. I have chosen to do it this way so that you would have more flexibility in what your finished item looks like. You're not limited to the small piece of fabric that I give you or to a design that I have chosen. You can do these on a variety of items. You can make a table runner, you can make a wall hanging, you can make a hanging for your door, you can make a quilt out of it, you can put it in the corners of the quilt, you can put it in the center of the quilt. There's just a bunch of things that you can do with it. When you get your kit, it will come in a plastic bag like this. You will have a colored facing on the front, but I have to get this little guy together to take a picture of him to make that piece, because this is the very first kit in what will hopefully be a whole line of kits. So this is a Ziploc bag, which I just had a little bit of trouble getting to open. And here are the pieces that you get for the Bluebird. Now the first thing that we need to do, and I'll lay this off to the side here, the first thing that we need to do is find the center of our fabric that we're going to put this on. Now this may not look like the center to you, but it is. I have this piece of fabric pinned onto a June Taylor pressing board, and I did that so that my fabric wouldn't move around on me. It's up to you whether you want to pin it to an ironing board or something a little bit more firm than just laying your fabric, but I have done them just laying my fabric on my ironing surface, and it worked out just fine. But the first thing you do is find the center, which is right here. I measured. You can either do that, you can either measure your width and mark. I measured the width and then I marked this line, and then I measured the height and I marked this line. Or you could just fold it into quarters and mark your where your crease. You could crease it and use your crease line. Now to start the Bluebird, we need to come 2 inches to the right of this little guy, and you might be able to see that I've already made a marking. This is a Frixion pen. Always test your Frixion pens to make sure that they will disappear with heat. I've never had a problem with that until recently, and I'm hearing other people are having problems too. So I might be moving away from Frixion. I'm not sure, but we'll see. On this, it doesn't matter. You could even use a sharp pencil if you wanted to, because these markings will be totally covered once we get this little guy down here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my pieces, and I'm being very careful to lay them with the letters up, just as you would read them in a book. The letters have to be facing up. Now, I don't know if you can see these on the camera. And please forgive me, I've not done this before, so we'll see how this goes. I've taught, but I have not done it on video before. But lay them like you can see that my D is upright here. I don't know if you can see the F because it didn't come out. Some of these will just fall out on their own, and some of them you'll have to help them a little bit, the letters, but they do all have the letters on them. This one's the E. Sometimes the laser cuts the fabric, but it doesn't get all the way through the paper. I'll just lay that up there. Trust me, it is the E. And then this is the H. And this is A. Just trust me that that's A. I don't want to take the time to mess with this. And I'm going to lay this off a little bit to the side, just to make sure I have plenty of room to work here. So the very first piece that we're going to deal with is this medium peach color. And one of the things that you need to do these appliques is either an extremely sharp seam ripper, which this is my Havel's seam ripper, which has basically a scalpel blade on it. So it is very sharp, and you want to be real careful with those. I nicked my finger a little bit ago. I don't know if you noticed, there was a tiny bit from my little nick on the back of the instruction paper. I tried to hide it, but I don't know how good a job I did. The reason we want to make sure our D's, or our letters, this is a D, is upright, is that will show you the angle that that piece is going to go on your base fabric. Now some of these I went ahead and started to, just for the sake of time, I started pulling them out. There's little tiny tabs that hold them into place, and you need something with a sharp tip to make sure that you snip those. You'd want to be careful that a seam ripper that is not real sharp, you don't want to do that, because you don't want to pull strings on the threads on these. You know, I get upset when other people call thread string, and I just did it. That teaches me to not be more patient with other people, doesn't it? Because you don't want to make a pull across your piece. But they're just very easy. If you have trouble seeing them, I know this dark blue, I was having a little bit of trouble seeing them, and I just simply hold them up to the light when that happens. Now what I'm going to do, this is the first piece we're using, and I'm going to just lay this kind of here so that I can see the angle that it needs to go at. And if you want to, we're going to be using this 2-inch dot that I showed you. If you want to, you can even move this right over there and then lay this piece into it. But I want to show you what we're lining up. What we want to line up is, see this little hook? We want that little dot to be right in that little hook. I don't know if you can still see the dot, but the dot is right there, and then the hook is right there. Now, if it's not perfect, nobody's going to come along and measure this and say, oh my goodness, you're 1/8 of an inch off. So don't get upset with yourself if it's not perfect. But I'm going to lay this on here just to see how my angle seems to be, because for this piece, I want it to, everything's going to base around this piece. I'm just going to put that over the side now because there was only one piece in there. Now what I didn't do was pull the paper off, which that was kind of silly, but it's not a big deal. There's a little bit, the fusible that I'm using has some tackiness to it, and you want to be careful pulling these off so you don't rip anything. They come off pretty easy, but you just want to be careful. I'm going to put this back on here just to be sure. Like I said, there's some tackiness to the backing on this fusible. So you actually can tack this down, and it holds pretty good. It's down there pretty solid. In fact, I've even heard of people hanging it up on the wall for a little bit if they don't have time to get back to completing the kit. Okay, now the next piece that we're going to want, and your instructions will clearly show this. They're very easy to follow where the next piece goes. The next piece will be the black. It'll be the dark peach cut out of C. So here's our C. And once again, I'm going to use this time because I used the scissors the last time. And I may take a few of these tabs out of these, so you may not have as many to do. Okay, there was only one in that, so I'm going to put that to the side because my angle is going to be determined by this piece now. So I'm just going to take the paper off of that. I'm just going to fit it in there, just so. If you're seeing little gaps, it is fabric, it is flexible. Just go ahead and pull it together. I don't like to see little pieces of the background sticking up. It's not that big a deal. I will probably, when I get done with this, I'll probably do some thread painting on the edges just to make it look prettier. I have used on my logo quilt, I just did a straight stitch around the edges. I'll talk while I'm doing the next one. Now we're going to light peach. And the first one that we're going to use is going to be this one. The order isn't particularly a big deal. But see, there were probably about 4 tabs on this, and maybe there were 5. I cut about half of them just to save us some time for the video. So I'm going to take that one out first. I try not to go for like this sharp point down here. I try to go on a larger, flatter area to pull the paper off. Now this one's going to go right in here. And it's so much fun to see this little guy grow up and become a bird. I know I was in the middle of a story, but I've already forgotten what I was talking about. Oh, that I did I did a test before I decided which fusible to use. I wanted to be confident that I was doing one that was going to be easy to work with. Sometimes the laser doesn't get all the way through the paper. It's through the fabric. Oh, that's just a string of adhesive right there. But sometimes it just doesn't make it all the way through the paper. If you've held it up to the light and you're sure that it's just the paper that's left, you can always just cut the piece free at the edge. Like I could make a snip right there and right here. And then just when I peel the paper off, it's going to come loose. I think some of the fabrics aren't quite as thin as the others, and then that happens. The laser only goes through the top layer and doesn't make it through the paper all the way. There we go. That's just paper right there, if you're seeing those little things hanging out. Okay, I'm going to put this up where I can keep an eye on it, because I certainly don't want to lean over onto it. Take that off. Now I'm going to look at this. Something I didn't explain is these pieces will all be at the angle, and they will all be, like this one will always be to the left of this one. This one will be to the left of this one, and this one's a little bit higher than the bottom of this one. So I try to keep that like that so that it'll make it a little bit easier. But this one is going to go up in here. And you're just going to use this as your guide to put it down. And I'm going to scooch this in a little bit. You can use a corsage pin to do this. If you've got a metal stiletto, that's fine. Just a regular straight pin will work too. I had 2 daughters. They're now grown. So we have some corsage pins around the house. And it doesn't matter whether I grab the seam ripper or the scissors, it's just whatever my hand grabs, I guess. Now I started my kits with the Bluebird because the Bluebird has very special significance to me. And I think after I get this piece put down, I'll tell you about that. That's all the pieces in E, so I'm going to lay it to the side. This is going to fit right in here. Laser cut, so it is going to fit perfectly. I'm very careful with my designs. I make sure that I even account for the teeny tiny width of the laser when I do my designs. So there, he's starting to take shape, isn't he? I love it. Love it when they start to take shape. So next we're going to move on to B, which is dark blue. And we're only going to use, there's 2 pieces here. You probably can't see them on the camera, but if you had it in front of you, you'd be able to see it. But we are going to use, actually there's 3 pieces here. We're going to use this one towards the bottom to the right. And then while I do this, I'll tell you about the Bluebird. I had a very dark year quite a few years ago. It would have been 2006. No, it would have been 1996. That was a long time ago. I'm going to use my scissors for that one, because that one, if it would pull a thread, it would unravel a whole lot of stuff. And you know, if you have to, you can go out to the side. I mean, you're going to throw that away anyway. I did that because you probably can't see where I was going, but I could see where I was headed. And I just thought that that was the least chance of breaking this little tiny piece off of here. And it's going to make it easier to get up in here too. Anyway, I was having this dark year. I'm going to lay this back out because I don't remember which direction that goes. I can lay it in there and see that it goes this direction. I was having this dark year, and there was a particular day that just everything was closing in on me. My father was dying. He had been declared terminal, comfort care only. And that had just happened. And I had just gone through a big job that had me physically exhausted, which didn't help anything. Now this one, I am going to kind of leave this flapping. I'm not going to put it down tight yet. I'm going to put this point down tight here. But I'm going to leave that because even though this is repositionable, I got some other pieces. See, that's not even right already. I got some other pieces I want to get in there before I push that all down, and you'll see that as it progresses. So now we're going to go to the bright blue, which is A. So anyway, back to the Bluebird. I was in my living room. I was having a talk with God, and I was telling him that I just wasn't sure I could handle everything that was coming on my plate. I had teenagers. I had preschoolers. I had, yeah, our family's kind of all over the place. Just had a lot on my plate, and I just was saying, God, I don't think I can do this. And I'm sure we've all had times like that. And I went so far as to say, God, I need to know that you're with me and you got this. And I'm going to date myself, but I had always, we sang in music class when I was little. There's a bluebird on my windowsill. Now, be very careful when you pull the paper off of this piece. I have more than once severed the head from the body. And it's okay, because you're just going to fuse it down. I mean, but right there, I've had problems with that. I switched the fabric that I was using because of that. And this seems to be going much better. But anyway, I have always wanted to see a real bluebird. Not a blue jay, but a real bluebird. Okay, now we're going to fit this. I'm going to start up here and start fitting it in. And it's going to fit just perfectly in here, except it is fabric, so it is going to have a little bit of give to it. And again, I'm not going to put this down tight. We got some pieces that are going to go in here, and then we'll get everything together. So back to my story. I have always wanted to see a bluebird. In our area, there's bluebird trails. They put up rows of bluebird houses. We live out in the country, but I had never seen one around our house. Always wanted to, but never had. Now this is going to go up in here. I hope I'm not I'm probably blocking you with my head, aren't I? And just as I'm saying, I need something to know you're here. a bluebird landed in this little stick of a tree we had planted. We had a new house, fairly new house, and we had this little tree out front that was just basically a stick with two little other sticks that were branches. It was a flowering crabapple tree. And this little guy landed, I don't even know how that stick held it up, but he landed right on the top of that tree, and there was a sunbeam that illuminated it, just absolutely illuminated it. And I got so excited. I knew God was with me. My husband got home. I said, if I go buy a bluebird house, will you put it up? And being the good guy that he is, he said yes. Okay, we're going to go on to dark blue. I'm going to go ahead and talk while I cut these out. There's 2 more pieces in the dark blue. He said, yeah, if you get one, I'll put it up. So I ran right out and bought a bluebird house and bought a little book that they had beside them that told how to put them up and how they should face and what you needed to do. And now you're probably hearing from my dog. I assume my husband just got home. And Bluebird has been very special to me ever since. And people know that, so I have accumulated quite a few bluebirds. My house is full of bluebirds. But to me, a bluebird means hope. Okay, I'm going to hold this up to my little light so that I can see exactly where to clip that. And this is another really fragile little piece. But these little fragile pieces is what makes this look so awesome when you're done. Okay, so I have these numbered 1 and 2 on the instructions. It really doesn't matter which one you do first because they're not going to be connected to each other. But this is number 1. And this is going to go right into this hole. And again, I'm leaving this flap a little bit, although it'll be fine. And then I'm going to do this one. I'll be very careful right in there. Okay, now this is going to set I got it backwards. It sits right in here. Where is my bee? It goes like this. Okay, the top of this goes right up in. I'm going to pull this out and lay it. Now that's connected. I'm not unhooking it. I'm just this is going to lay right. That is not right. Yes, it is. Oh, I know what my problem is. I have to put this guy down because he comes down here. Some of you probably were seeing that. Hopefully I'm not got my head in here again. Oh, that makes more sense. Then this goes in here. And I can tell you right now, before I sell any of these kits, I am changing this dark fabric. I'm not liking this dark fabric. It's a little bit coarser weave. It's still a very good name brand fabric. And my husband just opened the door in case you heard that. He saw what I was doing and he left. It is a very good name brand fabric. Quilt Shop. I only buy Quilt Shop quality fabrics from a distributor. We're going to do black next, which is the F one. But a lot of what I'm using are batiks, which are just very, very fine threads. And I've gotten real used to them, and I really like them. So, yeah. I'm going to find the batik version of that color. But it'll work for today. And then this one sits right up in here. And yes, it's okay that there's that. That's his eye. Now I'm going to pull this down. Push it in there. Now we're going to do the light blue. Use this. There's one more, I think, on that. For some reason on this light blue, you can see the polka dots of the fusible. When you iron it down, those will disappear. I'm not trusting my judgment after that last guffaw. And then there's a teeny tiny piece on here. And do I want to use, I'm going to use my scissors because I'm going to come in from the edge. I got that one. And that's just coming right off of the paper. And I'm going to let it. We are down to one color, and that would be charcoal. And we're going to start with this one. I'm going to use this for this. I think that's pretty much out now. Okay. I'm going to lay this down. You know, H is a funny thing. This is the direction the H goes. So I know that this is the direction that's going to go on here. And this is going to go right inside the tail. And then move that up like that. We have one piece left. You might see that there's another eye-shaped piece there. I decided I didn't like the eye being charcoal. It just didn't show up against the black. So I changed it to the light blue. If you get a kit that has both colors, if you want to use charcoal, go for it. This is just one of my first 20 kits, so I missed that little thread when I cut it, the tabs before. That just looks like the obvious. I wouldn't normally go for the point, but it was sticking out. Okay, now this one finishes the whole thing off. Put that on there. Get it going down the beak. Make sure you got him going down the beak. I'm going to lay this in, and then I'm going to mess with that other. There we go. Oh, of course I did. There. And that would be Bluebird of Hope. Now all you would have to do is, this fusible requires steam. So you can either use a steam iron, and I just do a light touch so I don't move anything. I just pat it down with the iron and do light touches and get all the pieces kind of like a basting down. And then I go back over it and lay it down and push on it hard. And 15 seconds is what you need on the cotton setting. And then, oh, I started to tell you about the trial that I did with several different interfacings. Or, yeah, they do call it interfacing, but the fusible on the back. This particular fusible held up really well. I took 3 different kinds, and one of them, the one row, each of them, I just fused them down. And I treated everything exactly the same. I washed the fabric together. I fused according to the manufacturer's directions to put the fusible on. But then I put them in the laser and cut them out. And cut all identical squares. They were all laser cut, which is important because the laser, the heat from the laser, fuses the fusible onto these edges, and it helps hold those edges and keep them from fraying. But when I got done with this, okay, so one, I just put them down, just fused them down on a backing fabric. Then I did another row, and I just did a straight stitch close to the edge to applique them down. And then the third one, I used a satin stitch to applique them down. And then I just threw it in the washer with whatever I was washing. I did not give them any special preferential treatment. I didn't hand wash it. I threw it in the washing machine with towels. I threw it in with my tops, t-shirts, everything. This one, after 5 washings, even the one that did not get sewn down was in good shape. I mean, nothing was fraying, nothing was coming off. And I'm still trying to decide. I might do a blog post about this and tell you what the brand names were on them. But one of them, it was such a spider webby fusible. It was very soft when it was done. The hand on it was nice, and there's definitely a place for it. But for this, after the first washing, some threads were starting to come off, and it was starting to pucker. You know, in between, on all three, the satin stitch, all of it, it was starting to lift in between, and you were getting puckers in it. But then I was rough with it when I washed it too, because I wanted to be. I wanted to make sure that I was getting something that people wouldn't have to handle with kid gloves. And this one, after 5 washings, it was still tight against the fabric. No fraying whatsoever on any of the 3 ways of putting it down. And I'm very confident that if you make a wall hanging or something with this and iron it down, you're going to be able to hand wash that several times. You know, I did it 5 with not being gentle. I can't imagine how many you could do if you were gentle with it. You would not have to stitch it down. But I'm going to try to thread paint him, and we'll see how that goes. I haven't done that for a while, and we'll see how it goes. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you enjoy putting together one of these. Please visit, well, you have visited the website if you're watching this tutorial, but I am very open to comments. I would love to hear back from you. I'd love to see pictures of what you've done. I want this to be a community because that's what I love, and that's what I want to do. So